Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a fundamentally different way of experiencing reality. If you've ever wanted to truly understand how a neurodivergent mind interacts with the world, you are exactly in the right place. We're going to break down the three foundational pillars that shape autism spectrum disorder. We'll be moving way past just the surface-level traits to understand the profound, everyday implications this condition has on a person's life. Let's start by anchoring ourselves with one core question. How does autism actually impact the way someone connects with the world? We completely take for granted our ability to seamlessly read a room, pick up on a subtle facial expression, or just roll with a sudden change in plans, right? But for a child or an adult on the autism spectrum, these automatic processes are experienced through a completely different lens. Let's look at exactly how those differences play out. Clinically speaking, to understand the autistic experience, you have to look at its specific triad of symptoms. This condition is anchored by three main pillars: widespread impairments in social interaction, deep challenges with communication skills, and the presence of highly stereotyped patterns of behaviors, interests, and activities. We aren't just talking about someone being a little shy or preferring things a certain way. These are marked, profound difficulties that can severely hamper someone's personal and social functioning right from early childhood. Now, here's a reality check that often gets totally glossed over in mainstream conversations. About 70% of children with autism spectrum disorder also have intellectual disabilities. 70%. That is a highly significant statistic. It tells us that, for the vast majority of these individuals, the severe social and communicative hurdles of ASD are compounded by below-average intellectual functioning and deficits in adaptive behavior. Grasping this overlap is absolutely crucial if we want to understand the true scope of the daily challenges they face. Okay, let's get into Pillar 1, the social interaction barrier. When you zoom in on these social deficits, you see a profound difficulty in relating to other people. Kids with ASD often just can't initiate social behavior. Where a typical kid might instinctively run over to show you a cool new toy, a child with ASD often simply won't. Furthermore, they can seem completely unresponsive to other people's feelings, unable to share their own experiences or emotions. Imagine navigating a world where the fundamental human drive to say, "Hey, look at this with me," or "Feel this with me," is effectively blocked. Moving right along to Pillar 2, communication and language challenges. Think about it. If you cannot organically initiate social behavior, your tools for communication are naturally going to take a massive hit. Because autism represents a spectrum, the severity really varies. But many individuals with ASD literally never develop speech at all. And for those who do, their language rarely functions in that reciprocal back-and-forth way we expect in a conversation. Instead, you might see repetitive, deviant speech patterns, like endlessly echoing a phrase they just heard on a loop, without any conversational context. For them, language isn't always a tool for connection. It can just be a repetitive looping of sounds, making flowing conversation incredibly tough. And that brings us to Pillar 3, routines and repetitive behaviors. In the real world, these restricted patterns often look like a powerful, overwhelming craving for predictable routines. If the social and communicative world feels overly complex and impossible to decode, the natural response is to deeply retreat into predictability, right? You'll frequently see individuals engaging in hyper-narrow interests or repetitive behaviors, like meticulously lining up objects over and over again. There's also a physical manifestation to this need for rhythm, stereotyped body movements, like continuously rocking back and forth. These routines and movements are often a vital way to self-soothe in an environment that otherwise feels completely chaotic. Now, we absolutely have to draw a clear line regarding these motor movements, which basically fall into two distinct categories. On one hand, you have self-stimulatory actions, like hand flapping. These are totally benign, even if they look a little unusual to an outsider. But on the flip side, you have self-injurious behaviors, which are incredibly severe, like an individual repeatedly banging their head against a wall. Understanding this distinction is literally critical for caregivers and society, so we know when to just allow a harmless, self-soothing behavior and when immediate intervention is required to protect the person from physical harm. Zooming back out for a second, let's talk about navigating human relationships. When you compound all these challenges together, the social interaction barriers, the severe communication deficits, and the rigid reliance on routines, individuals with autism spectrum disorder face massive, often overwhelming hurdles at every single stage of human connection. They have intense difficulties starting relationships because initiating just doesn't come naturally. They struggle to maintain them due to those steep communication barriers. And most fundamentally, they often have severe difficulties even understanding the complex, unwritten rules of human relationships that the rest of us don't even think twice about. We've mapped out the reality here: the high rate of co-occurring intellectual disability, the communication roadblocks, the repetitive behaviors, and the profound social isolation. Knowing these core challenges, we're left with a massive question to reflect on. What actual steps can we take as a society to better bridge these communication gaps? How can we step into their world rather than constantly forcing them to navigate ours to truly understand and accommodate their experience? It's something to seriously think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and keep asking the right questions.